Wynyard's face turned ashen, which is not the word I would have used to describe it. But basically his face went white, as if he saw a ghost. Did you see what I did there? You think it's pretty funny? Huh? Probably not. Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be telling you not 5, not 7, but 10 ghost stories from my home country of Canada. But before we get started, I'm Sophia Lovelace and I post about ghosts, ghouls, anything creepy and cool. So if you like any of that stuff, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below to be notified when I have new uploads. Also, when you're down there, make sure to hit the bell icon so you're one of the first people notified when I have new uploads. And by hitting that bell icon, you are notified of when I have premieres, which is an opportunity for you to chat with me live as we watch my newest video live together. So the day that this video is being released on my channel, which is July 1st, it is Canada Day. And I've been getting a lot of requests from people to do urban legends or ghost stories about the country I am from, which is Canada, obviously. So the article that I got these stories from is from Maclean's magazine, which is a Canadian magazine here in Canada. And they have listed 10 of the scariest urban legends / ghost stories in Canada. And I did recognize most of these, and you've probably recognized some of them, but maybe you haven't realized that they were Canadian. Number 1, the Mackenzie River Ghost. So this is one of the oldest tales in Canada, according to the article, and apparently the story is widely known in Europe, and it is set in the 1850s, and it is about Augustus Richard Piers. So this man was a fur trader and a Hudson's Bay Post manager. And if you don't know what Hudson's Bay Company is, they are now a kind of like department store, and they sell like luxury brands. Back in the day, in the early days of Canada, they were a fur trading company. And yes, so that makes them like over 300 years old, and they still exist today. Except for they don't trade furs anymore. It's usually just like Chanel perfumes and stuff like that. So this man, Augustus Richard Piers, was a fur trader and of course a Hudson's Bay Post manager. He died at 33 at Fort McPherson in the Northwest Territories' extreme north. So that's like the Arctic, if you don't know anything about Canadian geography. So he's like up there, really up there. Lots of snow. So his frozen body was transported to Fort Simpson for permanent burial. However, while they were transporting his body, a ghostly voice could be heard ordering the party on. Marche, or as in English, walk. And please don't judge my French attempt. I'm just learning, okay? Please don't come at me for my mispronunciation or my lack of accent when speaking French. I'm trying my best here. And of course, this led the sled dogs to go crazy. The second story is the Baldoon mystery. Late in the 1820s, the vacant Baldoon sheep farming settlement between Wallaceburg and Chatham in southwestern Ontario is a classic poltergeist haunting. The phenomenon included bullets, stones, and lead pellets raining down on the farmer's home, as well as fire from the sky. The windows broke at their own accord. A baby in a cradle was rocked madly by an unseen hand. Chairs slid across floors. These events ceased after the home burned down in 1831, which is really disturbing. And it doesn't actually mention how the house burned down. It doesn't say if they set the house on fire or if the house set on fire on itself, which I could believe either story at this point. The third story is the story of the Wynyard apparition. In 1785, British Army Lieutenant George Wynyard and Captain John C. Shearbrook The future governor and general of British North America sat in Wynyard's rooms in Sydney, Nova Scotia, conversing by the fire, when the figure of a tall young man appeared by the closed doorway. Wynyard's face turned ashen, which is not the word I would have used to describe it, but basically his face went white, as if he saw a ghost. Did you see what I did there? You think it's pretty funny? Huh? Probably not. The young man looked at him, then floated by the fire, and then through the door. It was Wynyard's favorite brother, who was in England at the time. Wynyard later learned that his brother had died at age 20, at the very moment he appeared in Sydney, Nova Scotia. So that is not necessarily a scary story, kind of more heartwarming because it kind of shows that there is life after death. And I don't know, I feel like that story is more of a happy story than it is a scary one. The fourth story is the Great Amherst Mystery. In the 1870s, a cottage that once stood in Amherst, Nova Scotia, at the corner of Princess and Church Street, I'm assuming there means street, where the young Esther Cox was sickly and brokenhearted, was tormented by a poltergeist. Now, this is one of the stories that I'm pretty sure a lot of you have probably already heard, but you might have not thought that it's a Canadian story. So her arms and legs would balloon to enormous sizes and the bedsheets flew in the air. On her bedroom wall, one night, the words, "Esther Cox, you are mine to kill." The disturbances eventually petered out, and Cox went to marry and moved to New England. But did this poltergeist follow her? I guess we'll never know. Number 5 is the Binstead haunting. This is another late 19th century ghost story, which took place outside of Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island. In the house, there was rumbles and shrieks and moans which could be heard. At the end of each episode, the voices began to seem to be coming out of the tree outside of the dining room, which touched the upstairs bedroom, the focal point of the phenomenon. Those who saw the ghost described a woman and a baby in her arms. The sixth story is titled The Ghost of Tom Thomson. The artist and hero of the group of 7 painters died under mysterious circumstances in 1917 while paddling in Algonquin Park's Canoe Lake. It is said that in some mornings, shimmering on those same waters is a gray canoe with Tom Thomson paddling in it, which I just think is pretty disturbing. I mean, it'd be kind of neat to see such a Canadian icon as a ghost, but I think it would still be pretty disturbing. Number 7, William Lyon Mackenzie King, Prime Minister of Canada, who was the Prime Minister of Canada between 1935 and 1948, long hid his spiritual pursuits, which he believed permitted him to maintain relationships with dead friends and even his mother. But after his own death, Mackenzie King's friend Percy Phillip, the Ottawa correspondent for the New York Times, told the CBC he had traveled to Mackenzie King's estate outside of Ottawa called Moorside in Gatineau Park, where he carried a long conversation with the Prime Minister's ghost. "Be still, listen, and feel," Mackenzie had once written about contacting with spirits, and this Philip did. "Good evening, Mr. King," he said, aloud after feeling a presence sit beside him, and their discussion ensued. Now, the next story I have talked about on my channel about doing an entire video about this creature, but since it's within this article, and since it's so brief, and it's not really about the Windigo, but it's just a story related to the Windigo, I thought I would share it. But if you guys have any questions about the Windigo and what it is and what it isn't, make sure to leave them down below and I will get back to you. But I am planning on doing a whole video on the Windigo and how it's related to Bigfoot in another video on another day, which is not today. The Windigo is a spirit central to Algonquin belief system that is said to possess individuals, causing them to lust after human flesh. Although widespread, the stories of the Windigo are particularly associated with the Northwest Ontario. where in 1907, a settlement just north of the town of Red Lake, police arrested brothers Jack and Joseph Fiddler of the murder of Washakapike, Joseph's daughter-in-law, who they said had turned into a Windigo. Jack, who later committed suicide, admitted to killing 14 such Windigos during his lifetime. Convicted, Joseph died in jail 2 years later. The ninth story is the Dagg Poltergeist, which took place in Portage de Fort in Quebec, west of Shawville on the Ottawa River. Around the home and farms of George Dagg, the disturbances centered around Dinah, a Scottish orphan who had joined the Dagg family and began in September 1989, with a series of fires erupting spontaneously around the home. Soon the stones were thrown through the windows by unseen hands, and the household objects such as milk jugs, a butter tub, and a wash basin floated through the air. Dinah was heard conversing with a deep, disembodied voice, who answered her questions. The haunting inexplicably ceased after 3 months. Now this one is interesting because I wanted to point out that it says that the haunting only happened for 3 months, which makes me think that this was a demonic presence, considering a very common theory when it comes to demons is that demons like to mock the Trinity. So if you're Christian, you believe in Jesus, God, and the Holy Spirit, and if a demon, they like to leave scratches in threes, knocks in threes, as if mocking and making fun of that Trinity. So the 3 months thing, kind of spooky. Now the next story is really interesting because we've actually talked about it a few times in different anthropology classes that I have taken, because it's a very interesting phenomenon that happens in several cultures, but this is a little bit more specific. And I'll explain why that is after I read it to you. For centuries, Newfoundlanders have blamed a class of sleep disturbance on the Old Hag, a ghostly figure who descends on her victims as they sleep, lies on their chest, and causes nightmarish sensation of paralysis. It's said that those who do not wake up from these episodes will die. Now this story and these experiences are very, very common in Newfoundland. And I know that because I come from Newfoundland, but then also we study this a lot in my anthropology class because it's an example of a cultural specific illness. So almost every culture experiences sleep paralysis. And usually in Western culture, if it's a spiritual thing, sometimes we explain it as something scientific, but sometimes it is seen as a demonic thing. And we describe it as like a demon sitting on you. But in Newfoundland, they describe it as an old woman who is trying to choke them and strangle them while they're experiencing sleep paralysis. So that's just how it's different culture to culture, but every culture experiences this specific thing. They just have a different way of describing it. So that is the end of my video today. Hopefully you guys liked it. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. If you did enjoy it, make sure to please give it a big thumbs up because it really helps me out and it shows this video to more people. You can also leave a comment down below letting me know what kind of videos do you want to see next. Do you want me to do a different country this time? Make sure to leave your thoughts down below. If you like this video and if you like my other videos, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below to be notified when I have new uploads. I post about ghosts, ghouls, anything creepy and cool. Also, when you're down there, make sure to hit the bell icon so you're one of the first people notified when I have those uploads and when I have premieres. And I think that's it for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Stay spooky,